Hey everyone, let's talk about the annotated bibliography assignment. The assignment gives you an opportunity to select an issue involving CMC and some sort of communication that is of interest to you, which hopefully with the case study you pick something that was of interest to you, and a typical question is, can I use the same topic or the same general idea? And the answer is yes. If you like an idea, if you like talking about how communication happens in a very problematic way, you can run with that. The annotated bibliography gives you an opportunity to investigate some of the literature that there is out there. And essentially, what we do with annotated bibliography is we find at least 6 sources, peer reviewed scholarly sources, which, again, if you have any questions, let me know. And we start to dissect, we start to dissect and try to understand how these topics pertain to the area of interest that we're talking about. So, for instance, if we were talking about privacy like we are this week, and your topic is finding ways or finding information about the ways that people try to monitor and manage their own privacy online, what you would do is you would start with a general search filter and start looking for the ways in which people use communication technologies. Now, we can refine that search a little bit more specifically if we want to go into, let's say, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. Okay, so the more specific you make it, the more you limit your overall literature that you can pull from. But at the same time, if you find similar types of platforms, you can make arguments as to why Facebook privacy settings are equitable or as important as Twitter because they share a lot of the similar features, whether it be personal information, posting videos and content, being able to share information that other people post. But essentially what you'll do, and I'll sort of jump over to the second screen here, if it zooms over. Here we go. Essentially what you'll do is something like this, which is already located on D2L. And what we see is very basically the APA citation and a paragraph, and I write within the assignment explanation a paragraph or two that provides us with a basic summary of what the information is within the paper itself, within the article that you find. Now, the purpose of this is not to simply copy and paste what they say. Half of the battle is you trying to identify and summarize in your own words, paraphrase, what this article found. And what you'll find in the process is that as you're writing about this, after you've read it and having to articulate it back, you are essentially regaining the same knowledge. In general, there are, I would say, 4 major ideas that you want to include within each explanation or evaluation. The first one is, were there any theories used? Okay. The second one is, what were the methods used to collect and analyze the data? What were the results of that data? And then what were the conclusions? Now, a lot of us don't have a very formal academic reading background, which is totally understandable. What I would do during your search is try to find ideas that are interesting to you within the abstracts of the beginning paragraph, within the introduction and the conclusion. Because generally, if it's a good paper, they'll provide you with a summary, a quick recap as to here's some of our predictions within the introduction, and then the conclusion is, okay, here's what we found, here's what we didn't find, and here's why it even matters. The why it matters is sort of the benefit here. Now, the annotated bibliography will then pull into your final assignment, which is the application development. So what you're doing now is you're doing a lot of the front work. You're building up the concepts, you're building up the ideas, you're finding literature that pertains. Now, if you want to do the same topic from your case study, and you found literature for that case study that you use, you absolutely can use that for the annotated bibliography. Just remember, generally speaking, at the top of each page, and you can see here how it's separated at the top, APA citation, and I'll send you a link in addition to this video with how to cite an APA for those of you who aren't as familiar, which is, again, acceptable. And then a basic explanation as to what happened within it. So for instance, just pulling out a line at random, participants also tend to be more satisfied with the system than with face-to-face brainstorming. So within this summary, we're providing us with basic information as to what was found. We talk about the basic design, the principles that guided it, such as conformity, status, or domination problems within these small group outcomes. And what you'll find over time is as you're going through, you're finding 6, 7, maybe 8, you might cut that list down. I generally try to find about 20 articles that seem to be related. And like I said before, I'll just look through the title of it, the introduction, the conclusion, and just find out through the abstract, what is this article about? And after reading those 20, I'll say, you know what? These 2 articles are cool, but they don't really coalesce well with what I'm talking about. And this article, I feel like this one article is the article. This is the article that I'm going to base my entire annotated bibliography on. And you might use that as a platform to say, okay, I've got the one. Now I need to find 5 more that really closely align with the arguments that are made within this paper. And that's usually a good way to start. Again, the evaluation here is really based on, are the sources appropriate? So please don't use books or editorials or websites, conference papers. Are they relevant to the topic? So if you give me one annotated bibliography summary of small group communication, which is what we have here, and then one about problematic CMC and catfishing, and then one on romantic relationships, I'm going to have a hard time understanding how all of these pieces come together. So the more clear you can make it, the easier it is. And you might find through looking at the titles of the keyword, or the keywords within the titles, that a lot of them will have the same types of ideas. In addition to that, be able to summarize this effectively. 1 to 2 paragraphs per article. That's not 3 paragraphs for one and then 2 sentences for another. Each one should, again, talk about the theories used, the methods, the results, and then, of course, the conclusions. Imagine trying to give me a 30-second pitch on this article and why it's important. That's what you should hope to do with each of the summaries. It should be very concise, it should be very clear, and it should give me a complete idea as to what was talked about. And then, of course, basic information such as citing everything in APA. If you have any questions, please let me know. I know that's sort of a basic overview of the annotated bibliography, but the example online should give you a really good idea. And again, if you have no idea what to talk about or nothing really seems to pique your interest, go back, think about it. Usually when I talk to one of my advisors, one of my mentors, I talk about this idea. And I say, oh, I love this idea. It sounds really good. And she'll come back to me and go, well, did you think about this? And you might find that I'm a really good resource for that, or maybe a friend or a significant other or one of your coworkers, whoever it is that you can bounce ideas off of and make a very clear argument to them as to why this is something that should be investigated. Awesome. What I find oftentimes is that students will come to me with ideas, and by the end of that conversation, we'll leave with something very different. So again, any questions, comments, concerns, let me know.